Our first story today. He grew up in a small town in rural Tamil Nadu. He was eating the simplest of meals in his mother's kitchen. Today, Chef Vijay Kumar stands at the very peak of global culinary recognition. A few days ago, he won the James Beard Award for Best Chef. It is one of the most prestigious awards in the culinary world. Now, he won it for his restaurant SamBhar, which is in New York, and it is the only restaurant in the city to not just hold a Michelin star, but to do it multiple years in a row. What sets him apart isn't just these awards though. It's how he's made the food of rural India a sensation in the world's toughest dining city. In today's Breakfast Club exclusive, we speak to the man whose Veshti made as much of a statement as his cooking did. Let's bring him on to the show. Chef, thank you for joining us here on the Breakfast Club. It's so lovely to have you here. If we could just start first, Chef, by asking you, when you stood on the stage receiving this most prestigious of culinary awards, the James Beard Award, and you decided to wear a Veshti, what was going through your mind in that moment about that young boy who started off with this dream, who wanted to celebrate the foods in his mum's kitchen?
First of all, it took me a few minutes to process it because I couldn't even believe that was happening, because I felt like it was a dream. People like me who grew up in such a small village in Tamil Nadu, from a farming family, such a humble family where, I think I'm probably the first generation who went to college. So it everything felt like kind of a dream to me. I couldn't even believe it for a second, and also, I didn't expect even one single person that I will be winning, because this is my very first nomination, and people usually a lot of chefs are other people in the category, different category. They get nominated multiple years and multiple times. They probably get to win after 5, 6, or sometimes it goes up to 8. So, and also, I'm just cooking a humble food, something that, what I grew up eating in Tamil Nadu. It's such a village cooking, and it's definitely not too fancy. And, there are so many things in my head, am I going to really win? Because there are 5 other nominees too, and they are very strong contender. For me, in my head, and also there's so many multiple emotion, I was also I was sitting there, I would never ever thought that, I would be sitting in this room. It took me a few minutes to look back my journey, how I grew up, what was my background and everything. And there was is it all real? So
a pinch me moment.
It took me some, it was also also it kind of emotional too, because I was kind of thinking back all my journey, thinking about my parents, how extremely they worked hard to raise us and pay all the fees for the college, schools, everything. There's so many mixed feelings.
Chef, one of my favorite quotes that you've made before is that there's no such thing as rich food or poor food. Can you maybe share with us a dish from your childhood that once felt like maybe it stood for scarcity? It stood for not having very much in the kitchen, but now it feels like a badge of pride.
Right. I think the one example, there's multiple dishes I can share, starting with, there was a dish with goat intestines, and, there's some dish with the mung bean, a sprouted mung bean dish. There are multiple dishes that we had them on the menu when we opened SamBhar, right? But there's one dish which actually very, very close to my heart is, there's a dish called Nattai Pratal, which is made out of snails, where it's very, very close to my heart, because I got this recipe from my grandparents. I just want to go back to the story a little bit, how my like I said, my background is a very humble background. I grew up in a small town. My grandparents used to live in a tiny village. So every time, when we used to go for school holidays or something, we always it's such a tiny village. There was no electricity. There was no, even I remember there was no bus for such a long time. They had to walk about 2 kilometers to reach a village. So every time we go to the school, school holidays where they have to entertain you. Like they take you to like a fishing or like a hunting or make you work in their farms for fun. Like so they help them like forage the snails. Like they she used to cook at the open fire in a mud pot. So that was kind of very nostalgic memory, and even it was actually kind of humble food. Like even though in India there's a thing like judgmental, right? Like they just like uh, they just judge you based on the food what you eat. Like there's a lot of multiple way of there's so many different type of judgment in India, which is still existing, sadly.
Yeah, absolutely, Chef. Chef, speaking about some of the delicious foods that you make, you've shared your sambar powder recipe with a few lucky fans. What's your philosophy on flavor? How do you balance, especially something like a sambar where the balance of the different flavors and that total flavor that's being created, that's very important.
Well, see, I mean, Indian food is all about flavor, right? I mean, we like to eat everything so flavorful because our spice, it's one of the very, very oldest cuisine. It's been there for like thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as, I mean, the philosophy is nothing. I mean, we just want to cook the food as it is. We don't need to try to fit into someone else's mold, trying to make it like, more, like trying to make it more fancy or trying to like, oh, let's be like a French food. Let's be like, other Western food. Like, let's not trying to fit into someone else's mode. I think our philosophy is like just to cook the food how you grew up eating or how we just unapologetically. That's a simple philosophy, and definitely don't want to compromise the flavors and don't dilute it down or don't down the spices just to please the Westerners or others. I mean, the simple. I mean, if you have to say like one word, I think our food is unapologetic Indian.
What to you has maybe been the trickiest ingredient when you are trying to match what you saw in your childhood, but also obviously introduce it to a global audience, to global diners? Not because it's unfamiliar, but maybe because it's close to your heart and you wanted to represent it with, a lot of preciseness.
In Tamil Nadu, there's a dish called Ratta Poriyal, which is made out of goat blood.
Yeah.
Even though it looks kind of, I mean, it sounds weird, but it's one of those dish like it's very commonly eaten in Tamil Nadu. If you go to like a village part of Tamil Nadu, right? And see, those are the dishes I'm really want to like introduce to the western part of the world. But I think I'm having a little difficulties sourcing the ingredients. As soon as I find it, I think I'll probably put it in the menu soon.
Really excited to try that. Okay. Chef, your restaurant, one of the reasons it's so special to us is because it defies the cliches. So when the Western world has a certain idea of what Indian food needs to look like, you defy that with the dishes that you put out. Are there dishes that you've ever debated putting on the menu, either because the food feels too bold, too emotional? Do you have those sort of conflicts inside you?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think most of the dish on the menu is like, they all bold. I mean, like I said, it's a very unapologetic food. Like
Yeah.
things like with goat intestines. And we also had a dish, we also switch the menu very often. So we had a dish called maan curry, which is made out of venison, a deer, which is like big, again, like, I mean, now, it's the hunting deer is kind of illegal in India now. I mean, like 40 years ago, like, because villagers used to hunt all the animals, they used to eat it. That's how they used to live, right? So dish like that. And we also had a dish called, we also had a dish with a rabbit leg and a goat intestines. I mean, if you think about it, like no Indian restaurants will put those kind of dishes on the menu because it's actually risky.
Wow. Okay, so you're saying, what you're doing is really, really daring. And Chef, we want to now ask you a slightly different question. When you're cooking at home and you're cooking for your family, there are no cameras, there's no pressure to, retain your Michelin star. What is your go-to comfort dish that sort of makes you feel really warm inside?
Without doubt, just rice and sambar, and or just something with rice and some kind of some South Indian gravies. Anything with rice. That's my comfort food. I love rice.
You love rice. We all love rice. Is there a Tamil or a Sri Lankan street food that you wish more people abroad had the guts to try? And if we could even ask you what your dream version of it is.
I don't know if you can single out any one particular dish. I think they just want to try everything.
Okay.
That's been eaten like regularly.
Yeah.
Every single state has a different cuisine, right? Like if you go to Tamil Nadu, they have some cuisine. If you go to Sri Lanka, it is all similar, but they are little micro variances, right? Even within Tamil Nadu, there are a lot of micro regional cuisines.
Right.
So I just don't want to single-handedly say, "Oh, try this dish, try that dish." So I don't want to. Then I don't want to be then let's say if you a lot of people associated South Indian food just with dosas. I don't want them to have that only one dish to be associated with one cuisine. There are a lot of dishes, so I want them to try every single thing. I hope there's a younger generation. They are going to start cooking their own food. How they are going to introduce their micro regional cuisines.
Chef Vijay, we are so proud of you here in India. Once again, for our viewers, you won the James Beard Award. It is one of the most prestigious awards in the culinary world, and it is such a pleasure to have you on to talk a little bit about the magic behind your cooking, to make our mouth water a bit as we go into the rest of our day. Chef, good luck, and we hope you keep retaining those Michelin stars for all the years to come. Okay, let's move on from this story now to something very different. We're taking you to a new weight loss drug that is on the market and the story, some of the controversy that has existed around these drugs in total. We're taking a look at Novo Nordisk's blockbuster weight loss drug, Wegovy, today. It's finally made its debut in India. It arrives in the shadow of a global storm. The drug is based on semaglutide. We're going to explain what all of this means further. But first, just to give you a basic, semaglutide is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Basically, it works by copying basically a gut hormone, and it works to suppress your appetite, slow your digestion, and increase satiety, which means that basically you won't feel as hungry as you usually do in a day. It is already a rage in the West. Wegovy is administered once a week. It's a Flexi Touch injection, a Flex Touch. That's what the technology is called. It's approved specifically for chronic weight management in cases of morbid obesity. And in India, it is going to be expensive. So it starts at 17,345. We're going to just break down those rates for you. This is per dose, but it actually climbs to 26,000 based on how much your dose is. Now, Novo is betting big. There are 250 million Indians who live with generalized obesity. They think it's a market that's quadrupled in 3 years, and so they're eyeing a major slice of India's anti-obesity pie. But globally, this journey has been far from smooth. What do we mean when we say that? Well, in the US, the company is facing heat, not just from the rival Eli Lilly, Mounjaro and Zepbound, but from its own boardrooms. According to a Reuters report that came out, internal warnings about whether or not this product is ready to put out in the market, those were ignored. Executives were ousted. The company rushed into the market without securing adequate supply or insurance coverage. That's at least what this report said. Now, Wegovy may have delivered 15 to 20% of weight loss in clinical trials. It has also shown benefit in liver and heart health, but its effects are being tightly linked to continued use with weight rebound. What that means is after you've lost the weight comes back, and muscle loss. So in that process of when you're losing weight, that fear that you're also losing muscle and you should not be losing muscle. Well, we're going to talk more about it right here on the show. We're going to tell you about the risks, thyroid cancer risk, digestive disorders, what can be done about it. We take a deeper dive right here on the show. Don't worry, that's why we're here with you on The Breakfast Club. First, very quickly, what we want to take you to is an interview. So this next interview comes from Novo Nordisk's India Managing Director. As they are launching this drug, they actually spoke to our channel. This is News18.com's Himani Channa. She sat down for an interview. Take a look.
Directly coming to the most important question, that is, by when we are going to find Wegovy in nearby pharmacies?
Thank you very much, Imani, and thank you very much for having me. Wegovy, while I'm actually talking to you, it is already under the distribution chain, and I'm sure that within 3 4 days it should be reaching the nearby pharmacy. Wegovy is actually indicated for treatment of obesity and is available in 0.25, 0.5, 1 milligram, 1.7 milligram, and 2.4 milligram in devices for self administration.
Vikrant, when you emphasize on the word devices, is there any particular reason that we say that this comes in a device? Is this a special kind of a device?
Yeah. See, what happens is any of the injectable can come in the form of vials, can come in the form of pre-filled, syringes, come in the form of pen fills, like our various insulin. Now we wanted to have this device in which we have got semaglutide, by which patient can take weekly injection. So it's once in a week, 4 dosage in one pen, and likewise the next strength has got 4 doses, so it becomes very convenient for the patient. And that is the reason we emphasize that the kind of device in which the drug comes, that also become very, very important for convenience and compliance.
Right. Vikrant, will you be able to explain our viewers the pricing of this drug?
Yeah, and that's a question which everybody is asking me, and we have actually learned from our earlier and previous launches. We saw the behavior of the GLP-1 drugs, and we realized that when you start the medication and when you accelerate or when you titrate it upwards, it really create a hole in the pocket for the patient, because people can move from 0.25 to 0.5 to 1 milligram. And here, Himani, what we have done is we have priced it at 17,345 for a month, and that means 4,336 for a week. And this pricing remains the same for a higher strength pen, which is 0.5 milligram. And not only that, for 1 milligram pen also, it is the similar pricing. And that's basically just to make patient realize the benefit of semaglutide when they start and initiate, and then when they go for further titration with the help of their doctors, they do not get the pain of paying more. Of course, when it comes to much more higher strength, 1.7, it is priced at 24,280, and 2.4 strength is priced at 26,015.
Vikrant, will you call this pricing in line with the pricing of Mounjaro? Do you think that this price is competitive enough?
I think what we have priced it, that we have kept the similar pricing for the first 3 strength, and we feel that this is the right pricing for India. We feel that given the devices in which we are offering, that is the Flex Touch, in which the semaglutide is there, and for self-administration, I think it is a good price where people will really benefit. And I think doctor is the best judge in terms of prescribing semaglutide.
Right. Do you think that Mounjaro still has an early mover advantage?
Personally, I believe that down the line, 5 years, this 1 quarter will look like a small line in terms of the time frame, right? And someone has to come early. I think we really welcome them in terms of the market.
All right, to break this down further, because that is why the Breakfast Club exists, we have with us Dr. Mohsin Wali. He's a Padma Shri awardee and a former physician to 3 Indian presidencies with us this morning. Doctor, thank you for joining us here on the Breakfast Club. Doctor, one more weight loss drug on the market, Doctor. I just want to understand from you, for anyone who's been hearing this weight loss word for years now, they've heard of Ozempic, but there is a fear that long-term, so we don't know what the result of these drugs will be 20 years down the line. This is the first time these drugs are being used in this scale. How would you suggest they go about understanding which of these, because the market in India now has a few options. So how would you suggest they go about understanding which is the right one for them?
Best option is not to become obese. We create obesity for ourselves, and then we find solutions to combat this. This is very unfortunate that 44% of Indian males and 41% of Indian females do have obesity as per recent surveys, BMI more than 25, and this is self-inflicted. The other side of the story is we have to find out the cause of obesity. Suppose obesity is because of hypothyroidism, and in many cases it is due to stress, overeating, eating wrong kind of food, then these drugs may not help at all unless you remove the stress, unless you treat the underlying cause, or in some severe cases, rare cases, it could be some other endocrines involved like adrenals. You see, obesity is not a condition of merely increasing the weight. It is the whole arena of psychiatric disposition of a patient, and also his eating habits, his stress level combined, and also the kind of the food. So we have to address these things. Okay. I have seen that people get very excited when these kind of news come, and they just think it's a magic drug or magic pill, and they resort to consumption. And in India, the greatest problem is self-medication. I am very fearful that more people know about availability of these kind of injections, drugs, and possibilities. People will not go to doctors to consult properly. They will start using them as self-medication. This is the greatest fear to me.
Okay, doctor, I want to ask you, so I understand, I totally in fact agree that, you know, your fear right now that log khud lene lag jayenge, they'll take it themselves, they won't go to the doctor, and all of these brands are saying that that's the most important thing, ki please doctor ki recommendation pe lo, do not be adventurous. So all the brands are also coming out and saying that. But doctor, one thing I want to sort of say and ask you here is that many who suffer from obesity will say that it is not in our control. If it was so easy, we would have fought it. And I understand your point that, look, you need to control it, you need to exercise, you need to eat healthy. But as you said, it's a more complicated problem. There are also psychological aspects to it. Stress is a big cause of people eating in a manner that is uncontrolled. So doctor, first tell us, if we can just ask you, what is happening when one has this medication? We're telling people your appetite is getting suppressed. But how is it getting suppressed? Chemically, what's happening inside our bodies that leads to that?
The सबसे important इसका जो mechanism है, which is less talked about, is that they create a gastroparalysis. The speed with which the stomach empties and milks out forward the food, जो उसको खाने की रोकने की क्षमता होती है उसको स्लो कर देते हैं, उसको आगे बढ़ाता नहीं है स्टमक. तो वी हैव ए फीलिंग ऑफ सेटाइटी कि हमारा पेट भरा हुआ है, अभी हमें और नहीं खाना है. तो ये जो है इसका वर्ड इटसेल्फ ही थोड़ा सा चिंताजनक है. इसका नाम है गैस्ट्रोपैरेसिस. इसका मतलब temporary slowing down the normal speed of the stomach to empty. So this is one of the mechanisms. We have many oral drugs of this group which act through GLP. तो GLP के through ये act करते हैं. Glucagon like peptide is a hormone, and they mimic the effect of GLP, which is there in the intestinal receptors, and to some extent you have talked already about the muscles.
Yeah.
So the glucose which goes to the muscles in the form of glycogen is somehow reduced. We have also not understood the central mechanism by which it suppresses the appetite and increases the satiety. These are the known mechanisms, but there can be some unknown mechanisms also which we do not know. उसके थ्रू भी ये GLP analogs करते हैं काम, और हम oral drugs इसकी बहुत दिनों से यूज़ कर रहे हैं in obese diabetic patient. Now the indication for which this has been launched is obesity. So we have to be very careful that obese people who are using these new kind of drug they have to be monitored. They may not have hypoglycemia. Like I gave a simple example, metformin is given for PCOD. So we have to be very careful that girls who are taking metformin for PCOD, they may not have low sugar rate, they may not overeat and develop obesity. This is one of the other side of the coin. So we have to be supervising our patients. First of all, I always advocate that shift to the healthy lifestyle. Knock obesity when the child is in the school. वहाँ पे एक्शन लेना है. दिस इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट कि हम ओबेसिटी को पैदा ही ना होने दें. बच्चों के स्कूल में से ग्रीन फील्ड्स जिसमें वो लॉन में खेलते थे, पीटी करते थे, वो गायब हो गए. स्कूल्स बंगलों में खुल रहे हैं. मैंने एक दिन वेलम स्कूल का अपने सेक्रेटरी से फ़ोटो डाउनलोड कराया एंड शी आस्क्ड, आप ये क्यों डाउनलोड करा रहे हैं, क्यों प्रिंट करा रहे हैं? मैंने कहा द स्कूल साइज इज स्मॉलर देन द लॉन, द बिल्डिंग इज स्मॉलर देन द लॉन. So this is disappearing. Our children are eating junk foods. That too,
Doctor,
without the awareness
I
of
do
the
want to
parents
ask you those,
at the
Doctor.
2 o'clock
Doctor, I want
cloud
to ask
kitchen.
you. There are a lot who would push back here and say that, as I said earlier, that if we could control, no one wants to be obese, no one wants to be overweight, right? And there are some who would say that, look, we have a genetic predisposition for being overweight. It's not entirely in our control. Doctor, I just want to ask you, for them who say that, look, it's not just this, even something frankly like PCOS, which makes you more disposed either to eating in a certain manner or to weight gain or to having difficulty with weight loss. So aren't there a combination of different symptoms that lead to this issue?
See,
where just saying, eat healthy,
take an excuse
exercise.
by saying genetic predisposition. This is not always the case. Even if I am genetically determined to be obese, unless I eat more, I will never get obese. This is an excuse taken, and everybody knows, nobody follows. This is the rule in obesity.
Okay.
That we know, we postpone the exercise, we postpone that we would have a healthy plate from tomorrow, let us eat junk today. And this is going to be a very great problem for Indian young people who are dying suddenly of cardiac deaths. And we have been talking every day, sudden cardiac deaths, which is happening. One of the reasons is wrong kind of food, and same is behind obesity, and therefore we have to be very serious. Second is mobility. I have made a cartoon in which a boy is lying on a sofa with remote in the hand, bottle of beer, a can of some other drink, and eating pizza, lying on a sofa. I call it sofasan. So from sofasan we have to convert it into active exercise. We have stopped cycling. There used to be a chakki in the old homes which the ladies used to have exercise.
Can I ask you,
this is
if I could ask you those, Doctor, don't you think
that these drugs also mention that unless you combine these medications with appropriate diet and exercise and counseling, they may alone be not active. And you have in the beginning have already said that this kind of weight reduction might come back.
Okay,
so all these
Doctor, we'll just ask you very quickly a follow-up question here, because we've just lost the doctor for a second. We'll just re-establish our connection. He wasn't being able to hear us over there. We do want to ask him more around this entire story. So not just about these drugs, but also as we're seeing an increased phenomenon of younger people taking these drugs. What could it mean? What could the side effects be? On social media, it's often called Ozempic face, the belief that you can spot when someone is taking one of these weight loss medicines on their face, in the manner in which their face looks and their throat looks post-consuming these kind of medicines. Are there other side effects, and are there other more serious side effects? The tricky part of this story, remember, is that these are all medications, right from Ozempic to Wegovy. These are all medications that have just been introduced to general markets over the last few years. What that means is that the long-term effects have not yet been studied. Okay, let's go back to Dr. Wali to understand a little bit more. Doctor, we lost our connection earlier to you, so we were asking you questions, but I don't think you were able to hear them. Doctor, can we ask you here, apart from these drugs, these serious medical drugs, in the last year, the Indian market also has other kinds of medication. So for example, medication that you can have for your gut biome, good gut bacteria apparently, that will help you with this same exact stimulant. You have other basically natural examples of these medicines that are crowding the Indian market. And the Indian consumer is sometimes more excited to have those because they are natural. Doctor, what are your thoughts around medications like that?
Well, this microbiome theory and gut microbiota have been taught to us since long, and everything will be controlled by our gut microbiome. This is a very important part of the health which we have been ignoring. And again, I would say right kind of food and right kind of psychological balanced attitude, stress-free attitude will keep our gut healthy. This is most important. And we have stopped eating simple things like khamiri roti. If we use plenty of curd in the diet, it would be as good as having something organic or something natural for gut microbiome. We used to put yeast in our breads at home in the past. That has disappeared. So a simple tablet of yeast every day will do magic. And stress again modifies all this gut microbiome.
Okay.
So stress is the main factor behind many illnesses of human body. I would say all illnesses of the human body. It may not be wrong, be it obesity, be it blood pressure, be it sudden cardiac death, be it PCOD, be it overeating. Everything is revolving around stress. So primarily the stress has to be tackled, which is the most difficult part in day-to-day life. And unless we tackle stress, we cannot tackle our metabolic syndrome, weight inclusive, and the sleep pattern, healthy sleep. Then comes, of course, alcohol, smoking, and
Doctor, can we
in
ask
some
you,
cases drugs.
Can we ask you a last question here
Yeah.
around this issue? We just want to understand, Doctor, there's a lot of confusion around stopping these drugs. So say someone has achieved the weight loss that they wanted after using one of these drugs for 3 months or 6 months. There's a lot of confusion that does one need to use these medications till the end of their life? Because will the weight come back once you stop using these medications? What would you answer that with, sir?
You have already said in part of early part of your capsule which you have made. Well, these drugs are to be used for long term under supervision, combined with proper diet.
Does long
and
term mean for the
exercise.
rest of your life?
You know, if one is diabetic,
Okay.
if one is diabetic combined with obesity, I would say probably yes, but the pocket allows. If the pocket allows, only then one can use.
Yes.
And again, I would say self-medication would come in between. You see, once you get opinion from the medical person, expert, and then you continue using this self-medicating. We have cases of some people, even important film stars, who have used drugs alike, and they have uncontrollable loss of weight also. So this is also to be kept in mind. You see, anything artificially used to control weight loss other than diet and exercise would have to be very, very judicious. I would say we have to know about the long-term effects of these drugs, and since this is my last statement, I would say watch your stress, watch your food, that means watch your plate before you watch your girth of the abdomen. So this is most important, and exercise here becomes very, very important as a sheet anchor of the management of the weight, drugs apart.
Doctor, thank you for joining us. Thank you for issuing that public notice, as you just said.
Welcome. Thank
All
you
right.
for...
Okay, we're going to move on from this now. We're heading into a quick break. On the other side, we take a very, very different look. We're shifting focus entirely. The Amarnath Yatra is beginning under a lot of security, so we take a look at that. And we take a look at, because we're staying with health today, it's a big health episode. We're also going to be bringing you more context around this. So we're just going to bring you more on the other side of the break. See you in just a few minutes.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar refutes Trump's India-Pakistan ceasefire claims. He said, and I quote, "Even today, the central factor in relationship between us is India and United States. When I am looking at ties with US, a lot about it is about trade, tech, mobility, defense, and ceasefire was negotiated between DGMOs." External Affairs Minister also slammed the global community's selective approach to terrorism, highlighting how some countries only take strong positions when they themselves are targeted. So this is what External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has once again highlighted, that there was no role played by President of United States Donald Trump in the cessation of fire between India and Pakistan. It was Pakistan who called at to our DGMO, and then at the level of DGMO, this understanding happened between both the countries. And also importantly, S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, highlighting this fact that there are certain countries who do not really talk about terrorism. When it comes to them, then they only come out and speak. We have a reaction. Let's listen in.
What we have communicated very clearly is we mean it when we say there is zero tolerance for terrorism. Now, and we also, if you look back at Prime Minister's address to the nation after the cessation of firing on 10th of May, there were some very clear messages which came out of that. So it's really for the terrorist groupings and for their sponsors to absorb and to reflect on those messages. Now, I don't think we are going to spell out, if this happens, we will do that. I mean, no government does that. The record of what happened at that time was very clear, and the ceasefire was something which was negotiated between the DGMOs of the two countries. So I will leave it at that.
There you heard India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar saying in no uncertain terms that there was no role United States played in cessation of fire between India and Pakistan. And also the second important point that he raised about the selective approach of the countries on terrorism. My colleague Siddhant Mishra is with us on the phone line. Siddhant, talk us through about these two major statements made by S. Jaishankar, whether about the role of United States between the India and Pakistan secession, and secondly, the selective approach of the countries on terrorism.
Well, Minister Jaishankar was addressing a press conference in Washington, D.C. and in fact, he did take up all the questions from the journalist. And when he was asked about how, when it comes to taking position on terrorism, then some countries don't take tough positions when it has not impacted them. So, to which Mr. Jaishankar said very clearly that, in fact, he slammed the global community's selective approach to terrorism, highlighting how some countries only take strong positions when they themselves are targeted. In fact, he also went on to say that as far as India's position on terrorism is concerned, that when terror attacks happen elsewhere outside India, we have largely followed the same position that we have taken when when terror attacks happen in India. So, citing India's example, Jaishankar said that, there may be countries, those who take selective positions when it comes to terror attack, but India's position has always been consistent. Coming to the mediation done by President Trump, etc., when he was asked about it, so he, explained India-US relationship to the media first. He said that even today, the central factor in the relationship between US and India is India and US. When I'm looking at ties with US, a lot is about trade, tech, mobility, defense. He said that we are a big country, we are a populous country, we should have self-confidence even in asking questions. And in fact, last, in a very dignified manner, he said that ceasefire was negotiated between DGMOs, and I will leave it at that. So, again,
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. We now shift focus and we take you to a 38-day holy pilgrimage that has just begun. We're of course talking about the Amarnath Yatra, and it begins today from the traditional Pahalgam route in Anantnag district as well as the Baltal route in the Ganderbal district. This year's Amarnath pilgrimage comes more than 2 months, remember, after a terror attack in Pahalgam killed 26 civilians that were mostly tourists. The Yatra right now is set to attract thousands, and it will continue under strict surveillance. Our colleague Ishan Bani on the ground right now brings you this report. Take a look.
The Amarnath Yatra has officially begun, and the first batch has started their journey to the spiritual holy cave located on a high altitude location. It's a very difficult and a daunting task to reach there. They have to travel, they have to walk through difficult terrain to reach there. Is the devotion which takes you there, and nothing except devotion, and that's why you're seeing that chants of Bam Bam Bole reverberating in Pahalgam today, and people going despite when Pahalgam attack took place a few kilometers away from this location, that they have come here. 3,400 pilgrims from this particular location have set off towards the shrine cave located up there. It's not an easy task, it challenges the best of us, and devotion, old and young, coming here to ensure that they get the blessing. Security arrangements have been strengthened and multiple layers of security is in place following Baisaran attack, and it is they are the first batch of pilgrims who have gone for Amarnath Yatra. Officially today, the Yatra has begun. Massive security challenge. You will see CRPF, multiple layer of Jammu and Kashmir Police, Indian Army, BSF and other agencies involved to ensure that there is security, tight level of security. The pilgrims are leaving as we speak, and it is early morning that they have started their journey. RFID cards, CCTV cameras and different strategies adopted by the security agencies to ensure their safety and security. They say that they don't have fear and they want to ensure that they embark on the journey. Many of them are coming not for the first time. They have been regular visitors and they believe that year after year arrangements have improved, the security has improved. This has led them to come to Kashmir once again. They'll become the ambassadors of Kashmir for peace, and that is why the thrust of the government is to ensure that this particular pilgrimage goes on peacefully from both Pahalgam and Sonmarg, which are the two routes to perform Amarnath Yatra.
यहाँ का पुलिस, यहाँ का प्रशासन प्लस यहाँ के लोग भी बहुत कोऑपरेट कर रहे हैं और कोई भी भय का कोई भी ऐसा माहौल यहाँ पर मुझे नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है। जो उत्साह हम सब शिव भक्तों में है वह निश्चित रूप से बहुत ही अच्छा है आने वाले समय के लिए।
कैसा माहौल है?
शानदार, बहुत शानदार माहौल है सर, बहुत मजा आ रहा है सर। ट्रिप कितनी भी हुई है, बहुत शानदार व्यवस्था है सबकी, बहुत शानदार सर।
क्या नाम है आपका?
अंकित कनौजी।
अंकित कहाँ से आए?
हम आए हैं यूपी शाहजहाँपुर से।
कैसा लग रहा है यात्रा पे जा रहे हैं? क्या आपको खींच के लाया यहाँ?
भोले बाबा हमेशा खींच के लाते हैं, चौथी बार यात्रा कर रहे हैं लगातार, तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
कैसे इंतजाम लग रहे हैं?
अच्छा है, मतलब हर बार की ही तरह है और थोड़ा इस बार अच्छा लग रहा है। मतलब माहौल मुझे लग रहा था कि कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है, लेकिन बहुत बढ़िया है।
तो सबको नहीं लगा घर पे डर?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं।
पूरा इंतजाम बहुत अच्छा है और अगली बार आने के लिए मैं कोशिश करूँगा। बहुत अच्छा इंतजाम है।
Okay, now from that to a different kind of journey. It's a new chapter for Virat Kohli. The cricket legend Virat Kohli has now taken ownership of an electric boat racing company. What do we mean when we say that? Well, the racing aims to promote new sports that respect climate change options. And Sanjay Suri brings you more. Take a look.
And what might Virat Kohli be up to now past that spectacular career in cricket? What all, really, one should ask. But who would have guessed this? Virat Kohli now owns a team engaged in electric boat racing around the world, a sort of Formula One on water, if you like, a long way from the world of cricket or even owning an IPL team. The boats, one has to say, found him before he could find them.
We have talked with his management. We managed to get in contact with his management, and we started talking about the proposition. So the management of Virat started communicating with him and showing the main values of our proposition. And Virat liked the product. He loved the idea that this project is very much a impact-driven kind of project. So for us, it's great to have him on board. Of course, we, thanks to him, reach many people who loves cricket, and they are spread around the world, so very global kind of reach.
It's a competitive new sport, of course, but also promising investment. With a viewing of about 100 million around the world for recent races, this could turn out to be as pocket-friendly as it is claimed to be environment-friendly.
Investors that are investing in the championship, they find a deal with the talent in order to have them on board. So that's how it works in most of the cases, actually in all cases.
And nobody should be surprised that Kohli's team is already beginning to find the winning way.
He is very interested. I know for a fact that he's at least asking what the team is doing in race weekends. Actually, the team is improving this year massively. They've done a P3, so they were on the podium in Lake Maggiore. And yes, I mean, he loves the sport, he loves the idea, and we will see him soon in one of our races.
Virat Kohli is not the only star who owns a team here. He has the company of and competition from former tennis star Rafael Nadal, the American football star Tom Brady, and others. The current E1 round of races began in Jeddah in February last year, and the sport is being taken to more and more countries this year. The teams are drawn from 11 nations at present. The competing pilots are both men and women. At speeds approaching 100 kilometers an hour, the race is quite a challenge.
Okay, and now we take you from what looks like a very, very exciting new developing sport to Network 18's Shosha, where we bring you an exclusive with Chitrangda Singh, and she actually sits down with CNN News 18 to talk about her 2-decade-long journey in the film industry. So all of the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Take a look.
What a beautiful journey you've had. Ups and downs were there, but you've dealt with as gracefully as you can, like you always do. Could you brief us the whole 2-decade journey?
Wow, brief you on a 2-decade journey. It's not always been easy. I mean, there's not going to be like this perfect answer that I can give you on that. There have been, like you said, ups and downs and very hard times, whether it was personal life, yes, but also work-wise. When you're not getting and you're struggling to get what you really want to do, you're sitting without work, and literally for those like almost a year and a half when nothing good came is when Surma came out of that, the film that I ended up producing. Correct. And it literally, and I've said this before, happened because there was nothing good that came my way, and I thought, I didn't think of writing, but then I happened to come across this person who I got introduced to. I got to know his life, and I'm like, we gotta make a film about him. I mean, he's the freaking real life hero. How many people come out of paralysis, become the captain of the Indian team, and go on to be the fastest drag flicker in the world? I mean, just that line is amazing, So yeah, so that came out of that. I wrote, I pitched, I put that thing together. It took almost 2 years for it to finally come on screen. So that was also like huge learning for me, and I think it was such a good experience. But like now sitting here today looking back, I think everything that I went through, good, bad, ugly, hard times, crying, going out of it, coming out of it, then going back into it, you kind of question your sense of self-worth, and all of that happens. You question your talent and where you're going to go from here, all of this. I think all of that is probably the best thing that could have happened.
Wow.
As I sit here today, I can say this. Back then, I'd be miserable.
We all struggled.
We all struggled. But the good thing is that today, when I look back, I feel like it's made me so much more rooted, so much more sure of myself, so much clarity, what I can do, can't do. And now I feel like everything is a bonus for some reason, It's like, when you can reach a point where you have nothing to lose because
the rock bottom,
everything is great, because there is so much, whether it is my son, family, love, you find other things that you root yourself in. And that is such a good place to be, to work from.
I understand.
When there is no sense of desperation, so to speak, but the desperation is there to do good work. but not just work.
Of
So
course.
I feel like that is a very fortunate place to be for anyone.
True.
And I feel that's how I'm today. It's a sense of joy, not just happiness, where it's not कि अच्छा ये काम मिल गया तो हम खुश हैं, नहीं तो हम बर्बाद हैं, you know. It's not that. It's a sense of joy, like, you know, everything that's coming is good, and you know. So yeah, I'm glad I went through all that. It's a good thing. I think it also makes you a better actor somewhere.
That's very true.
It improves your emotional, I don't know, range, I guess, because you've been through a range of emotions.
All right, we're heading into a short break. On the other side, more of the country's top stories right here on The Breakfast Club. Stay with us in just a few minutes.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
External Affairs Minister S. Shankar refutes Trump's India-Pakistan ceasefire claims. He said, and I quote, "Even today, the central factor in relationship between us is India and United States. When I am looking at ties with US, a lot about it is about trade, tech, mobility, defense, and ceasefire was negotiated between DGMOs." External Affairs Minister also slammed the global community's selective approach to terrorism, highlighting how some countries only take strong positions when they themselves are targeted. So this is what External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has once again highlighted, that there was no role played by President of United States Donald Trump in the cessation of fire between India and Pakistan. It was Pakistan who called at to our DGMO, and then at the level of DGMO, this understanding happened between both the countries. And also importantly, S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, highlighting this fact that there are certain countries who do not really talk about terrorism. When it comes to them, then they only come out and speak. We have a reaction. Let's listen in.
Welcome back. Next, we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro. It's Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look first at GIFT Nifty. Okay, GIFT Nifty signaling a strong start for Thursday trading. US markets ended firm as Trump's trade deal with Vietnam brings a lot of optimism. Asian equities open in the green on similar positive investor sentiment. Crude oil prices eased on news of US stock piling up, signaling weak demand. If we take a look at a sector in particular, let's focus today on the building materials industry's fortunes. They are linked to the housing market as well as new construction activity. Demand in the retail segment is subdued right now across both urban and rural markets over the past 5 to 6 quarters. Most firms are therefore relying on B2B, that's business to business sales. Fiscal monetary SOPs that are expected to boost retail demand in the coming quarters. Now you can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the building materials sector and other actionable insights on the market. It's the premier destination for all investing views and financial insights you'll ever need, brought to you by Money Control. Tomorrow is, of course, Friday on The Breakfast Club, and we're going to be taking a look at a really, really fun topic. A few days ago, Mahendra Singh Dhoni actually trademarked one phrase, Captain Cool. But he's obviously not the only one. He is the latest in a long line of celebrities who've done so. Famously, there's also Shah Rukh Khan, who's already trademarked SRK and King Khan. Salman Khan, who's trademarked Being Human. But before that, you've also had celebrities like Taylor Swift, who in the last decade have trademarked not just parts of their name, but also catchphrases from their lyrics. How does trademarking work, and when does a celebrity decide that, look, this is the phrase I want to trademark? And how does the rest of the world allow it? What is the technicality around that? It's a really fun episode. Obviously, it's a Friday and we're bringing you the best of the entertainment world too, what you can do over the weekend. So that and more right here on The Breakfast Club. Do tune in tomorrow at 8 a.m. Goodbye.
Brought to you by This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar refutes Trump's India-Pakistan ceasefire claims. He said, and I quote, "Even today, the central factor in relationship between us is India and United States. When I am looking at ties with US, a lot about it is about trade, tech, mobility, defense,